Good morning, sixth grade. We want to welcome you to our second annual Black History Month Assembly. We have some really neat things in store for you today. We hope that you sit back, relax, enjoy, and learn a few things today, okay? Good morning, BH. Do you guys know what to do when I say BH? Do you know what to say back to me? You're going to say you know, okay? BH? 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 Nice. All right, so how many people, when you were told to stand back up for the national anthem, you expected a different song? Okay, good. Teachable moment. In your PBIS lesson at some point, I think it might have been last week or the week before, it talked about the Black national anthem. And that's what our lovely chorus just sang to you. And it's a longer song than that, but it was something that was, I believe, started back in right around the Civil Rights Movement, and it's done at different Black History Month assemblies. So hopefully you guys get to hear that again. Okay, so I'm Ms. Corbin. Some of you guys know me. Some of you guys just know my face in the building, probably aren't sure who I am, but hi. So before I became a teacher at Beverly Hills, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of my history since we're talking about history. So first of all, I am a descendant of African slaves and a product of the Great Migration. My family came from Alabama and ended up in Western Pennsylvania. And if you've ever been in my room, what team do I have up in my room? Pittsburgh Steelers, Pirates. I grew up in Pittsburgh because that's a steelworker town, and my dad was a steelworker. And that's where a lot of the people from the Great Migration ended up in Pittsburgh because of the steelworking. After that, after high school, I came here to the Philadelphia area. I went to Temple University. But guess what? I didn't study to be a teacher. I actually have a degree in business. But after the tragedy of September 11th, I was compelled to switch careers. And I've been in this building this is my 17th school year. Yeah, I don't look that old, do I? Well, anyway, I reflected on all these things, and I was trying to find a poem from a Black history figure to read to you, and instead, I wrote one on my own. So I'm going to share that with you. I am the strength of my ancestry, the power of my heritage, the pride of my bloodline. I am the legacy that will continue to rise above the tribulations in our history. I will continue to strive for greatness as I inspire you to acknowledge your innateness and eventually trust in your own greatness, your power, and your purpose. I am so that you can be. Ladies and gentlemen, if you can welcome to the stage the coordinator of our Black History Assembly, Dr. Alston.
Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome to the second annual Black History Month Assembly. So before I begin to introduce our speaker and presenter this morning, we had students who participated in the Black History Month essay contest. So what I want to do is I'm going to call each of the students to come up to the microphone. They're going to announce their name, the person whom they wrote about, and what inspired them about that individual. Okay? So why don't we do this one at a time?
All right, my name is Ibrahim Tanel. The person that inspired me is Muhammad Ali, because I'm a fan of martial arts, and when I found about him, I was amazed, and yeah.
My name is Ryan Watanabe. I wrote my essay on James Meredith. I found his persistence to go to university very inspiring, and yep.
Hello, my name is Tasneem, and I wrote my essay about Sandra Parks, and she inspired me because she made me think more about segregation, and I want more people to also think about that and like be more active.
Wow.
My name is Luna, and I did Maya Angelou because she is really positive, and she's hardworking, and she never gives up.
Good.
My name is Arnie Etienne. I wrote about Marley Diaz, and she inspired me to think more about the books that I'm reading and think more about diversity of them. Hi, my name is Caprice Crenshaw. I did my Black History Month report on Vivian Theodore Thomas because he found the cure for blue baby disease, and that showed me that even without the education to do that, he still found it out. Hello, my name is Yasmin Kill, and I did Madam C.J. Walker because she inspires me to start my own business.
You got this. You got
Yeah, I
this.
do. Hi, my name is Siani Noble Pons, and I did Thurgood Marshall because he taught me to pay more attention to my education and not waste it.
Let me begin by introducing the speaker. Last year, we had Dr. Timms Taylor come, and she presented a very, very excellent presentation for us last year. And in continuance of what Dr. Taylor has started last year, I had called her up and I'd asked, I said, so, would you mind coming back, or did you have someone who you could recommend that would give us the same presentation or better? So she said, Dr. Austin, I have someone who's going to give you a fabulous presentation. And I said, okay, well, who is he? He said, well, his name is Mr. Jackson. And I said, okay, so what do we know about Mr. Jackson? She said, Dr. Austin, all you need to know is that Mr. Jackson is all that and a bag of chips. I mean, she said, Mr. Jackson is extremely talented. He is an individual who has been a drama teacher as well as a language arts teacher for well over 30 years. He has performed on stages from Pennsylvania, all throughout the South, and even overseas. He has served in the military. He is a storyteller. He is a singer. He is a preacher. He's actually a pastor of a church. I mean, Mr. Jackson is extremely talented, and we are so lucky to have Mr. Jackson come to our program. Mr. Jackson told me, he said, Dr. Austin, my goal when I come to BH is that I want to aspire them. And I said, what do you mean by that? He said, well, I want to empower them, but I also want to give them inspiration. She said, I want them to walk away being educated, but I also want the students to be entertained, and I also want them to feel a sense of pride in Black history. So he had said these words to me, and I just felt real good inside. I said, you know what, Mr. Jackson, you're going to love it at BH. So with that being said, I want to welcome Mr. Jackson to our program. Mr. Jackson.
I go. You say Amen. I go. I go. I go. I am because we are. Because we are, I am. You say, I am because we are. And because we are, I am. And that's who we are. We are part of the human race. We may have different skin tones. Our melanin content may be different, but we were created as one. I am a griot. A griot is a storyteller in ancient African kingdoms. Griot or griot, some may say, that term is French. Now you say you are an African griot, so why is that term French? I'm glad you asked that question. The reason is that during the transatlantic slave trade, the Middle Passage, beginning back to the 1400s when Portugal first came to the African continent, those who were there, who were captured and brought to this new world, to the Americas, those ships may have ended in Jamestown, such as 400 years ago in 1619 in Jamestown, Virginia. History books tell us that 20 enslaved African people came. And so today, in 2019, we are 400 years later. We celebrate the transatlantic slave trade and the beginnings in this country of the peculiar institution otherwise called chattel slavery. And so, why French? Because many European nations came to the west coast of Africa primarily, and they enslaved those. They took them across the Atlantic Ocean to these Americas. And so they demanded that they learn the French language. And so if you would go to Togo and Mali and Benin and Sierra Leone and other Western African nations, they speak fluent French, as well as their tribal languages. And so here we are, descendants. Some may have come from Europe, some from Asia. There's East Asia and South Asia and Southwest Asia and Central Asia. But here we are together. Some may have come over on different boats, different ships. But baby, here we are today. We're all on a boat together. And either we're going to sink or we're going to swim together. Can I get an amen? Amen? Well, here we are together. Because I am. Because we are. And because we are, I am. But you know, we did not begin in servitude. We did not begin in chains. We began in a glorious past where we owned our lands and we were the first to do mathematics. But then something happened. Something happened that changed the course of history. And they called that slavery. And so we came across the Atlantic Ocean on ships packed like sardines. 2, 3 months, there we were. And we would turn to the side because we were chained down, and we would say, what tribe I'm from? Fulani or Shanti. What tribe are you from? And of course, we all didn't speak the same language. Some died while they were on ship. Some women took their children and jumped overboard rather to be brought to a new land to be enslaved. But it didn't stay there, because once we got to these American shores, we worked on those plantations to help build the economy of this country we call United States of America. But there were people who were brave and courageous. There were people like Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth and many others. There were abolitionists like Levi Coffin, a white man who grew up born in Greensboro, North Carolina, who moved to Indiana, became a part of the Abolitionist Society. And then there was Thomas Garrett. When I came in, there was Garrett Road, and I thought about reading about Thomas Garrett, how he was determined. They say that he helped to take to freedom over 2,000 slaves, and when he was brought to court, he said, yes, I am a station master. But he continued, and so you say, as we said earlier, we may have come by different ships, but we're all on the same ship together. I wonder if Harriet was here today, coming from those dismal swamps, born there in Talbot County, Maryland, traveling with no shoes on, just about 5 foot tall. And she always carried a firearm on his side, because if you were going to go back and tell the master, you had to look down the barrel of her gun. They say that Harriet used to carry a little bit of hemlock, not to kill anyone, but just to cause the babies to go to sleep, so that if they wouldn't make noise, so that it would not be captured by those who were the bounty hunters trying to capture them. But I wonder, could we go on a virtual journey? Come with me. Come with me. Please, come. She said no. Yes, come. Now, you have to get down. And real slow. And so we're going up north. We're going by way of the drinking gourd. That is the North Star. If we can just follow that North Star, we know we're going in the right direction. Now, I don't want anyone to turn around. If you're thinking about turning around, you don't want to. And so Harriet continued her way. But along the way, they would meet at different stations. Sometimes Thomas Garrett would take them in, right here in Upper Darby, and then take them on further to Philadelphia, where William Steele and other members of the Abolitionist Society would take them further as far away as Canada. But the bounty hunters would still be chasing them. And so what they would do was they would sing songs that had codes. And they would sing songs like, come with me. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. I'm singing, wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. And so there's the North Star. So let's change our song. Let's sing. Swing low, sweet chariot. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. If you get there before I do, coming for to carry me home. Tell all my friends I'm coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. So we don't have far to go. We're going to get to the north. We're going to get there soon. You have to be very quiet. And some say that Harriet Tubman's father taught her how to be still in the woods, how to move stealthily, that is, very quietly, even though there was leaves and brush under her feet. She was taught how to be still. I wonder if we had to be still for a long period of time, if it meant our freedom at the end of that time, could we be still? My Lord, what a morning. My Lord, what a morning. My Lord, what a morning to hear the trumpet sound. And so that long journey from Maryland to Pennsylvania, where they would meet other station masters, they would know by a light that would flicker on the home if that was a safe place. But we are kings and we are queens. That's who we are. Never let anyone tell you that you'll never be anything, no matter what your race, creed, or color. Always remember who you are and whose you are. So then, after that period of time, when Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation around 1863, there was a period after that called the Reconstruction. But they went from slave codes, slave laws, into black codes to continue to keep men of color, Negroes called then, in bondage. And there were some who fought for their freedom and justice, black and white, men and women. And this year, we celebrate the black migration. Dr. Carter G. Woodson began Negro History Week in 1926. In 1915 or 1912, he started the Association for the Study of African Life and History. But around the turn of the century, about 1900, African Americans began to move north, looking for a better place to work and to have their children educated and to gain a better education. Many of them moved to Harlem in New York. And some have heard of the Harlem Renaissance. That was a period of time in the 1920s and 30s when African Americans began to write music and poetry and dance. And it was a very popular time in this early or young 20th century. Langston Hughes is probably the most prolific writer during that time, meaning he wrote more than anyone else. And perhaps you know some of his poetry. Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is like a broken-winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams go, life is like a barren field frozen with snow. But then there's that poem called I Too. And we sang the Negro or Black National Anthem. And we've sung the national anthem. But sometimes this nation that we represent, this nation that for 24 years I wore a uniform, but sometimes across America, this human race we talk about, we're not good to each other. And so in those 1930s, Langston Hughes wrote a poem called I Too Sing America. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and grow strong. Tomorrow, no one will dare send me to eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America. And then there's that song, that poem by Langston Hughes called Mother to Son. I hope each of you are honoring your mother and your father, that you're honoring your teachers and your coaches and your mentors and your principals. Well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It's had tacks in it, splinters, boards all torn up, places on the floor where there ain't been no carpet, bare. But all the time, eyes have been climbing, reaching landings and turning corners. So don't you fall down now. Don't you turn back. Don't you sit down on the steps because you find it's kind of hard. Because I's still going. I's still climbing. And life for me ain't been no crystal stair. And so as we move up this journey to the 1920s and the 1930s and 1940s, there's a man by the name of Paul Robeson. His parents had been born into slavery. They moved to New Jersey. His father was a Presbyterian minister. And Paul Robeson was a very bright child. He stood out. He made the dean's list, the honor roll. But there was still, even in the North, segregation, intimidation, and racism. He was the captain of the football team, the captain of the basketball team. He was the leader of their forensics or debate team. And as he grew older, he won a scholarship, a Rhodes Scholar, which is for the top students in college to travel to Cambridge University in England and to study. He studied there. When he left there, he went to Columbia University to receive his law degree. But while there, he took up interest in what was the political landscape in America, what was happening to people of color. And so he began to act on stage. And he began to find that he was leading, just like the teacher went from business to being a teacher. Paul Robeson went from being a lawyer to being a stage act internationally. But there's one song that I can recall, a song he sang in a very famous musical called Showboat. The writers of that music was Hammerstein was one, and Jerome Kearns. And this particular musical was about the longshore of South Carolina and how they had to lift bales and had to tote on the barge. And so they wrote a song called Old Man River. Is anybody familiar with Old Man River? That song is a signature song that represents the burdens that even in the 1930s and 40s, in the 20th century, black men and women, boys and girls, had to live with in America. Old Man River, that old man river, he must know something, but don't say nothing. He keeps on rolling, he keeps on rolling along. He don't plant potatoes, he don't pick cotton, but them that plants them are soon forgotten. He keeps on rolling, he keeps on rolling along. You and me, we sweat and strain, bodies all aching and racked with pain. Tote that barge, lift that bale, get a little drunk, and you'll end in jail. I'll get weary and sick of trying. I'm tired of living, but scared of dying. But old man River, he must keep rolling along. And so the 1950s was a tumultuous year or decade for Negroes, for African Americans in America. But they were those people who, just like the abolitionists and those who were station masters on the Underground Railroad, in the 1950s, there were people like Rosa Parks, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and many others who fought for the rights and to have the right to vote, right to have public accommodations as anyone, to ride on the bus just like the others, to ride on streetcars. And so we recall the story of Rosa Parks, where on December 1st, 1955, Rosa, who had been working at a department store, she got on the bus, was tired, and some say that she was tired in her body, but she said, no, that is not the case. I was not tired in my body. I was tired of being second class, of going to the back of the bus, going to the buses where they were for whites only and Negroes only. And so Rosa came on, and she didn't see a seat in the Negro section with just one left. Another man came behind her, a white man came, and the bus driver stood up and told Rosa to move. The other three, they did stand up, but Rosa sat down. And he began to say to her, why? Why are you sitting there? Negroes are not allowed to sit in that section. Get up. I'm going to ask you again to get up. And Rosa denied and said no. And the words that came from her mouth was, why do we have to always go to the back of the bus? I'm tired of going to the back of the bus. And she looked out the side to the window. And there she was. And after 361 days of walking and carpooling, using taxi cabs, they broke the pockets of the Montgomery Transportation Authority, the MTA. until finally the Supreme Court of the United States declared that it was unconstitutional to be separate on public transportation. The day that Rosa sat down was the day that America began to stand up. Thank you. And so, they continued through the 50s, into the 60s. There was a man who was born in 1939, born in Atlanta, Georgia, born to a father who was a preacher and a mother who was a teacher. Born there, he was a bright young man. He went to a school on the campus of Atlanta University. And there he was in many speech contests. Throughout his life, those 39 years, he gave many speeches. And he gave many sermons. One of those sermons or speeches was given at Barrett Middle School, no longer there now, in Philadelphia. But that was in 1967, just a year before he was assassinated. But I'm reminded about this one speech that he gave, because it reminds me of the composition of this school. As I come into the school and I see we are of different races, creeds, and colors, Dr. Alston tells me that there are 70 languages, I believe, 70 or so, that are represented here in this school. Very diverse. So I'm drawn to this particular speech, and I'll just read some of it. And this was a speech that he gave on the eve before his assassination, April 3rd, 1968, in Memphis, Tennessee. You know, several years ago, I was in New York City autographing the first book that I had written, and while sitting there autographing books, a demented, an angered black woman came up, and the only question I heard from her was, "Are you Martin Luther King?" And I was looking down writing, and I said, "Yes." But the next minute I felt something beating on my chest, and before I knew it, I had been stabbed by the demented or crazed woman. I was rushed to the Harlem hospital. It was a dark Saturday afternoon, and the blade had gone through. And the x-rays revealed that the tip of the blade was on the edge of my aorta, the main artery. And once that's punctured, you're drowned in your own blood. That's the end of you. It came out in the New York Times the next morning that if I had merely sneezed, I would have died. Well, about 4 days later, they allowed me, after the operation, after my chest had been opened and the blade had been taken out, to move around in the wheelchair in the hospital. They allowed me to read some of the mail that came in, and from all over the states and the world, letters came, kind letters. I read a few, but the one that I will never forget, I have received one from the president and from the vice president. I've forgotten what those telegrams said. I received the visit and a letter from the governor of New York, but I've forgotten what that letter said. But there was one letter that came from a little girl, a young girl who was a student in the White Plains High School. And I looked at that letter, and I'll never forget it. It simply said, "Dear Dr. King, I'm a 9th grade student at the White Plains High School." And she said, "While it should not matter, I would like to mention that I'm a white girl. And I read in the paper, for your misfortune and your suffering, and I read that if you had sneezed, you would have died. And I'm simply writing to you to say that I'm so happy that you didn't sneeze." And so I'm happy to say to you tonight, I want to say tonight that I too am happy I didn't sneeze. For if I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around in 1961, and we decided to take a ride for freedom and ended segregation in interstate travel. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around in 1962 when Negroes in Albany, Georgia decided to straighten their backs up. And whenever men and women straighten their backs up, they're going somewhere. And as we come to a close, like anybody I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will, and He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that as a people, we'll get to the promised land. And I'm so happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. My eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. And so, as we journey into this 21st century, men have been going to space on spacecraft for now perhaps over 50 years. In your schools, you are being taught science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We call that STEM. You added A to that, and they call that STEAM for the arts. But young ladies, in particular, you can be and you can do whatever you decide to be. If you want to be an astronaut, like Dr. Mae Jemison, who finished Stanford University when she was 16 years old and went on to receive her medical degree before going to the Peace Corps. And in 1992, she became the first African-American woman to take flight on a spacecraft. You can be and you can become whatever you decide that you want to be. In 1986, Dr. Ronald McNair and 6 other astronauts, one of which was a teacher, Krista McCullough from Concord, Massachusetts. She had trained to be an astronaut for 2 years. But on that fateful day in January in 1986, as the spacecraft left its launch pad, and just 30-something seconds into the air, there was an explosion. None survived. But there's a very iconic, a very favorite expression that she used. Because she is a teacher, and there are teachers all around, she said, I touch the future because I teach. And so always thank your teachers, thank your parents, thank those who help to nurture you. And there's a song made famous. I heard someone mention Muhammad Ali. And in that movie called The Greatest, there was a song that was sung that paid tribute to whatever's inside of you that wants to come out. Whatever you want to be, you can be. Whatever you want to become. If in your mind you can conceive it, if in your heart you can believe it, then you can say, I can achieve it. Say, I can. I can. I can. I can achieve it. And so, I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. A lonely place to be, for I've learned to depend on me. Everybody's searching for a hero. People need someone to look up to. I never found anyone fulfill my needs. A lonely place to be, but I've learned to depend on me. I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow. If I fail, if I believe, at least I'll know as I believe, no matter what they take from me, they can't take away my dignity, because the greatest love of all is inside of me. I found the greatest love of all inside of me. I am because we are. Because we are, I am. I can, I will, I shall be somebody. In my mind, I can conceive it. In my mind, I can conceive it. In my heart, I can believe it. In my heart, I can believe it. Then I know, without a shadow of a doubt, that I can achieve it. And you can achieve whatever you want to be and to achieve. It takes work. Sometimes it takes sweat. But at the end of the road, and at the end of the tunnel, some might say, there's some gold. Those that were along the Underground Railroad, including Thomas Garrett along this area of Upper Darby, they wanted to achieve something, and that was freedom. No matter how dangerous it was, and they achieved that. So we thank all those who came before us, those pioneers. Strive to be the best. Go for that honor roll. Be the best that you can be. And whatever that is, let no one tell you that you cannot be. And I thank you for your attention. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the school year.
Mr. Jackson, we would like to thank you for your time. 6th grade, let's give Mr. Jackson another round of applause, please.